The Dershow.
We're not going to have very many more amendments because today you can't get Congress to agree about what to serve for lunch. And how are you going to get them to agree on a constitutional amendment? Most of our constitutional amendments, or maybe not most, but a good many of them simply corrected flaws in the Constitution. The 12th Amendment corrected a fundamental flaw in the Constitution. Otherwise, you could never decide who was elected, the president or the vice president. And there are other flaws in the Constitution, too. Even the most recent amendment, the 26th Amendment, which says that you can't raise the salary of Congress except after an election in which the congressmen are up for election. That was regarded as a flaw in the Constitution, so you could get consensus. But you're not going to get major consensus today. So stay tuned. The next 4 years, you have to watch this show in the next 4 years because it's going to be a central aspect of this show as to how legally and constitutionally we navigate this conflict between the executive branch and the judicial branch. And in 2 years, we may see a tripartite conflict. We may see a conflict between the executive branch and the legislative branch. Right now, the two of them are controlled by the same party, very narrowly, to be sure, both the House and the Senate, very narrowly controlled by the House. But in 2 years, we may see what happened in 1994 with President Clinton not being able to hold on to his legislative majority. And then we'll see Congress clashing with the executive. Trump will say, no, I have this authority. Congress doesn't have this power. Congress will say, yes, we do. And then the courts will have to resolve it. Right now, what we see is the president and Congress essentially on the same side. He's gotten his cabinet picks and he's gotten most of his legislative choices. Of course, the Senate still has some degree of veto power because at least as for some issues, you need 60 votes, and that means you need Democrats and Republicans. But for some, all you need is 50 plus the vice president. And so we're going to see that clash. And the clash is going to be primarily between the judicial branch and the executive branch. Now, the Supreme Court will resolve it. The Supreme Court only takes 75 cases a year. That's a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the cases that are brought before it. And so a lot of these cases will be resolved in the lower courts, trial courts, courts of appeals, and only a few of them will come up to the United States Supreme Court. So stay tuned.